Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 8th Chapter, text number 10. Dasyun Pura San Na Vijitya Lumpato Manyanta Eke Svajita Disho Dasha Jitatmano Gyasya Samasya Dehinam Sadho Sva Moha Prabhavaha Kuda Pare Dasyun Purasan Navijitya Lumpato Dasyun Purasan Navijitya Lumpato Manyanta Eke Svajita Dishodasha Manyanta Eke Svajita Dishodasha Jitatmano Gyasya Samasya Dehinam Jitatmano Gyasya Samasya Dehinam Sadho Svamoha Prabhava Kutak Pare Sadho Svamoha Prabhava Kutak Pare Dasyun Purasana Vichitya Lumpato Manyanta Eke Svajita Dishodasha Jitatmano Gyasya Samasya Dehinam Sadho Svamoha Prabhava Kutak Pare Dasyun Plunderers Pura in the beginning Shat 6 Na not Vichitya conquering Lumpataha stealing all one's possessions Manyante consider Eke some Svajitaha conquered Disha Dasha the 10 directions Jita Atmana one who has conquered the senses Gyasya learn it Samasya equipoised Dehinam to all living entities Sadho of such saintly person Svamoha Prabhavaha created by one's own illusion Kuta where Pare enemies or opposing elements. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. So this is the last verse of Prahlad Maharaj to his father, Hiranyakasipu. So this is very exciting time in the Bhagavatam. In former times, there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Purport. In this material world, everyone thinks that he has conquered his enemies, not understanding that his enemies are his uncontrolled mind and 5 senses. Manak sakstanindriyani prakritistani karshati. In this material world, everyone has become a servant of the senses. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna. But in ignorance, one forgets this, and thus one is engaged in the service of Maya through lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Everyone is actually dependent on the reactions of material laws, but still one thinks himself independent and thinks that he has conquered all directions. In conclusion, one who thinks that he has many enemies is an ignorant man, whereas one who is in Krishna consciousness knows that there are no enemies but those within oneself, the uncontrolled mind and senses. Tasyun purasan avichitya lumpato manyanta eke svajitadi shodasha jitat manogyasya samasya dehinam sado svamoha prabhava kutak pare. In former times there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Ghora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripadam aham vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasundubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So we're seeking blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas. Prahlad Maharaj is speaking to his demoniac father Hiranyakashipu Atma Tattva Gyan. He is explaining him the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And he is stating here in this verse something quite revolutionary. In this verse, everybody in this world, everybody is seeing people in terms of friends and enemies. That is the normal way of seeing. Are you my friend or are you my enemy? If you're with me, then it's fine. If you're not with me, well, then you must be my enemy. So you better be with me. And in this way, one categorizes, the conditioned living entity categorizes people in these two categories. But Prahlad Maharaj is stating here that there are no friends and no enemies, except the 6 faculties of the uncontrolled mind and senses. Now this is quite a revolutionary statement, because it is pretty much turning topsy-turvy, upside down, the entire materialistic concept of life. When you meet anybody on the street, or in the office, or in the car, or wherever you may meet them, and oftentimes people are not very impressed. They're like, okay, what's the news? What you got to tell me? Do you have something that's impressive? Then you tell them this, because this was impressive to Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad telling him that there are no friends and enemies in this world. That's big news. For a materialist, that's big news. Because a materialist is seeing everybody according to these two categories, friends and enemies. A pure devotee sees everyone as a servant of Krishna and sees that every living entity has got potential to serve Krishna. And therefore, because of that vision of the potential of the living entity, the pure devotee can fan the spark in that person. Just like today is His Grace Kratu Prabhu's Vyasa Puja. Now I've heard from authorities that when Kratu Prabhu met His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in Toronto, on their first meeting, Srila Prabhupada told him, you should preach Krishna consciousness to all the people. Now he was a new person, like anybody who comes for the first time. But the pure devotee sees the potential. He doesn't see the present situation, the conditioning, maybe even the different types of desires and attitudes, but he sees the potential in the living entity. And because of seeing that potential and fanning that spark can blaze. How big is a spark? A spark. How big is a spark? That's a big spark. Well, your spark is this big, but usually how big is a spark? Small, right? It's very small. It's tiny. You can't hardly see it. Huh? Just small. But pure devotees know the art of fanning that spark, and from that spark, something very big, very wonderful can come. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj, it is stated that he himself, he was the handle, right, of that axe, which would cut down the demoniac civilization. So, a spark is something very powerful. If we can learn how to recognize that spark, every living entity is a spark of Krishna. That's something quite magnanimous, something quite astounding. Have you ever wondered how one spark, one teeny tiny little spark, is it teeny or tiny? Same, right? As they say. Can power such a big body. Infinitesimal. 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. That's a small spark. But that can power a body. Maybe the size of an ant, the size of a microbe, or the size of an elephant. So a person who has this knowledge from Srimad Bhagavatam, that sets them apart from 99.99% of the population, because they understand that the spirit soul is a part and parcel of Krishna, and as such there is potential. And if I recognize that potential, tremendous things can happen. Because Srila Prabhupada recognized the potential in the living entities, tremendous things happen. We'll get to that in just a bit. Now, Prahlad is speaking about the actual enemies, which are the uncontrolled mind and senses. Ordinarily speaking, the conditioned living entity identifies him or herself with the mind and the senses. Has this ever happened to you? That you thought that you are your mental state, or you are your sensual or emotional state? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? Huh? It's quite a natural type of a default setting that we have somehow bought into in this material world. Well, we're not this mind. Otherwise, we would be constantly talking to ourselves, which would make us pretty crazy, pretty weird. Cuckoo, yes, cuckoo. Huh? We're not talking to ourselves, but actually, the mind is telling us all these different impressions that it is gathering through the senses. And it is basically categorizing them into two categories. What are those two categories? Like and don't like. Huh? So, like social media, like and don't like, right? It's on the mental platform, like, don't like. That's why people like social media, because it's on the mental platform, like and don't like, friends and enemies. Oh, you want to be my friend? You know what? I don't want your friendship. Huh? Or somebody befriended me, all that stuff that's going on. I don't even know because I'm not really tuned into that frequency. But the mind is busy gathering this information about what is actually giving material happiness and giving material pain. And thus it's categorizing into good and bad. But for a devotee, all these things which are created through the sensory impressions and the mind are actually bad. Dvaite bhadra bhadra gyan. What is it? E sababram. It's all manodharma. It's just a creation, an imagination, a figment of the mind that we think this is good and this is bad. Because on the material platform, there is no good and bad. Because ultimately, everything leads to birth, death, old age, and disease. So it leads to the same result, whichever street you go down. It's quite impressive how Prahlad, 5-year-old Prahlad, is addressing his father, the king of the demons. And Prabhupada rubs it in here in his translation. He says, in former times there were many fools like you. Now that's pretty direct speech, right? That's pretty aggressive. That's very confrontational type of presentation. And he's telling him why he's a fool, because he did not conquer the real 6 enemies, which steal away the wealth of the body. Now, before we get into the confrontational speech, what is the wealth of the body? The wealth of this body is atato brahma jigyasa, that Jai Sisi Radheshyam Krishna Balaram Shishigonitai Ki, that this human form of life endows us with the greatest gift of the opportunity for self-realization. And a person who does not take this opportunity is being deprived, is being robbed of the greatest fortune. Simply engaging in the animal propensities will degrade a living entity into animal, into lower species. So the greatest gift, the greatest wealth of this body is to engage in self-realization. And the greatest waste, the greatest calamity is not to take this opportunity, this great fortune. Now, how can Prahlad, 5-year-old Prahlad, speak with such determination, such conviction, and such boldness? Imagine, 5-year-old boy talking to his father, who is the king of the demons. Would any one of us address their fathers like this? I don't know how you talk to your fathers. Anybody raise your hand? Would you address your father like that? Okay, we got one bold preacher here. All right, congratulations. But usually, It's not the way how we address our father. But Prahlad Maharaj, he was not in the bodily concept of life, because for Hiranyakashipu, he was actually his guru. He was actually his teacher and his best friend. And thus he was administering the medicine, the bitter medicine of Atma Tattva Gyan in a very direct and in a very powerful way. Now, there's a disclaimer. Don't try this at home, okay? Like sometimes in medicine, there's very severe cures that are prescribed for severe illnesses. For instance, just to give you an example, again, disclaimer, don't try this at home. If somebody is choking because their esophagus is choked and they cannot breathe air, sometimes it is recommended that you take a sharp object and you penetrate their throat and you poke a hole into their esophagus through which they can breathe. Don't try this at home, okay? I gave you the warning. Now, will you try this? No. Because this is not simple, type of remedy. One has to know what one is doing. In the same way, addressing seniors, superiors, people of authority with very direct and very challenging speech is not recommended unless one is in a very secure position of Krishna consciousness. In this world, everyone is a servant of Krishna. But in ignorance, one forgets this, and thus is engaged in the service of Maya. Through lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Due to forgetfulness, the living entity has taken shelter of so many unsavory activities, which force him to become subjugated to these different types of faculties: lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. These are considered highway robbers or plunderers. That's why they say in New York, don't leave the door open. Not in the daytime and not at night. I've learned from people in New York. You keep your door locked, because at any time of the day or night, somebody may come in and they may plunder you of all your possessions. In fact, they may kill you. So, in order not to let that happen, you should keep your front door locked. In this material world, we are very skeptical and very critical of everything and everyone, except of our mind and our senses. We have wholesale bought into this idea that my mind and my senses have my best interest at heart. What is the definition of a friend? A friend is a person who has my interest at heart. And an enemy is a person who does not have my best interest at heart. Now, how oftentimes have our mind and our senses given us trouble and led us into utter calamity and despair? Can anyone give me an approximate amount of times that this has happened? Too many times, countless times, time and time again. And even though we have done everything to please our mind and senses, as it is stated in this beautiful verse of Rupa Goswami, Kamadinam. Please, somebody chant it. We got microphone here.
obeyed the bad masters of my senses. They never give me mercy or time off, but I have simply obeyed them, because now my intelligence is awakened, and I am asking Krishna directly for service.
Thank you, Vaisheshika Prabhu. Even though I have tried to serve my mind and senses, never have they given me a day off. Have you ever gotten a day off from your mind and senses? Anyone has ever gotten a day off? No? That's a merciless master, right? I mean, people consider employers in the United States merciless because they only give you 2 weeks. But that's 15 days off, plus public holidays, and the days you call sick, okay? But our mind and senses, not one day off. Have they ever given you a bonus or a free gift? Okay, here is a free gift, okay. A pen, right? Here's a pen. No, not a free gift, nothing, right? In fact, quite the opposite, quite the contrary. They're merciless masters. So, Prahlad Maharaj is teaching us that we should not take refuge and shelter in our uncontrolled mind and senses. But we should realize that when we engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate, that then the mind and the senses actually become peaceful. They actually become appeased, they become quiet, they become satisfied. Anyone who has performed devotional service has experienced this peace and quiet. Not because of inertia, not because of impersonal meditation, not because of exhaustion and simply being tired and all spent, but because of actual satisfaction of the heart, which comes when the root of the tree is watered, all the branches and leaves become nourished and satisfied. Yatataror mulani sechanena tripyanti tatskanda bujopashaka pranopaharach chatendriyanam tataiva sarvaranam achuteja. When we water the root of the tree, every part of the body of that tree becomes nourished and satisfied. In the same way, when we water Krishna through devotional service, who is the root of our existence, all faculties become happy, nourished, and satisfied. So Prahlad Maharaj, he is proposing this very revolutionary concept. This is a real game changer. If we want to change our game, if we're not satisfied the way our lives is going, we should tune into the frequency of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hear Bhagavatam from the pure devotee, from Prahlad Maharaj. This is really revolutionary. And we should do so in the association of devotees. Because in the association of devotees, we can actually ponder and study in depth these teachings and assimilate them. Because there is something that happens when we study the Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. Our heart becomes susceptible. It becomes open. Otherwise, how open are we if you get a text message or you get an email? How open are we to those messages? So-so, right? So-so. Not very much likely, let's see, depending on many different situations. But if we are exposing ourselves to the teachings of the Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, naturally our heart becomes softened, it becomes open, and we actually consider, oh, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should start working along these guidelines and implement this in my life. That is the wonderful potency and the wonderful gift of Srimad Bhagavatam. Rishabdev, he has stated in the instructions to his 100 sons, headed by Bharat, Nayana deha deho bhajan riloke kastan kaman arate vidbujanje tapodrivam putrakasyena sadvam shudyet brahmasokyam tvanantam. That one should not engage in the animal propensities which are easily engaged in all different species of life, but one should actually seek for that higher knowledge, Brahma Sokyam, Tvanantam. It is eternal, it is everlasting, and it is actually giving us pleasure and joy. So this is the instructions of the Mahajans of Rishabdev of Prahlad, all the great sages and saints. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have this knowledge available in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. In this material world, people are not very impressible because the material world is a very transient place. Srila Prabhupada said, people have invented all this modern technology for what? For what? Why is there TV? So you can watch two trains collide with each other. Have you ever wondered? Have you ever been on a flight? It's kind of a rhetorical question. Have you ever seen all these little flickering images that are going on these screens? I'm not saying watch them, okay? Just like take a random glance. And you can see the train is crashing, the car is crashing, there's a mad chase pursuit going on. There is, I will not even mention what there is, but all the unmentionable things. Simply pain and agony. So much intelligence is going into creating these devices, these weapons of mass distraction. Have you ever wondered how peaceful life can be before there was cell phones and internet, where you had to actually write a letter and think about every word and put a post stamp and put it in an envelope, write the address? How many of you have actually done this? A few, a rare few. These are those from before the web. They're a rare species, okay? Anybody asks you in prasadam whether you're a senior and you're allowed to sit here, you can tell him, I used to post letters, okay? So this qualifies you as a senior, okay? Because sometimes these discussions are going on in spiritual groups also. How senior are you? Are you senior or very very, very senior? So, being Krishna's servant is the highest position that a living entity can aspire for. In Christianity, before a person is awarded sainthood, before they get, what is it called? Canonized? Canonized. It's not that they put you in front of a cannon and they shoot you, but you have to be dead for at least 100 years before you can be declared as a saint, okay? Just in case you were thinking maybe changing denominations, you know. Maybe things go a little faster in Christianity than in the Vaishnava tradition. You have to be dead for 100 years before you can be considered a saint. But there's 3 stages before being awarded sainthood. And what is the first stage? You're awarded the title. Now this is a very lofty title. This is also after a person is already dead and has made significant contributions to the tradition. He or she is awarded the title, Servant of God. Have you ever heard this before? Servant of God? Do we have this in our tradition? What do you call it? Das or Devi Dasi, right? You get that after a very short time of having proven yourself a worthy recipient of a spiritual master's instruction, following those instructions faithfully. You get awarded the title Das or Devi Dasi, which is a very lofty title. You're accepted as a servant of God. That's not an ordinary task. In other religions, you have to be dead for many years before you get that title. So it is not something cheap, but it is something very exalted. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 28th chapter, text number 9 in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is writing, if we divert our mind to thoughts of material enjoyment, then our mind becomes our enemy. And if we concentrate our mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, then our mind is a friend. This is very much in line with the 2 verses in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, where Krishna explains the faculty of the mind. Text number 5 and 6. In 5 he says that the mind can be the friend or the enemy. And in number 6 he says that if the mind is controlled, then it is your friend. So how do we control the mind? How to control the mind? That is a very difficult question. Because the mind, according to Arjuna, is more powerful than a raging wind. Can you control the raging wind? We can't even control these fans, right? And they're like manually operated with switch. It's impossible to control the wind. Huh? So how is it possible to control the mind? Krishna gives the remedy in the same book, in the Bhagavad-Gita. What is he telling us? Abhyasena vairagyena. By regulated practice and by detachment. When we regulate our mind by performing sadhana bhakti and by detaching it because of acquiring transcendental knowledge, the mind becomes actually controlled and conquered. That's quite spectacular. This is the $1 million jackpot. This is the greatest gift. If you walk away from this class just remembering this thing, my mind can be my best friend or my worst enemy. If I control my mind by regulating it in the practice of devotional service and by detaching it through acquiring this dibhigyan, this spiritual knowledge given from the spiritual master, then I'm actually free from the influence of the mind, at least theoretically. Practically, it may take a while to realize, to actually implement that. Because the mind will come back persistently with a vengeance and say, what about me? Did you forget about me? You not been paying attention to me. I got some very interesting, important things to tell you. Has your mind ever talked to you like that? Or is it just my mind? Has this ever happened? Breaking news. And the devotee says, oh, I'm not sure I need to know this. I'm not sure I'm really interested in this. Because the devotee is interested, what is Krishna doing right now? Krishna is just getting ready to get out. He's actually already out in the pasturing grounds because coward boys, gopas, they go out pretty early. They don't stick around for the sun to come up until it's very hot. They want to be out early. Especially the coward boys, they're very anxious to be the first at Krishna's home and to help Krishna get ready. Because the sooner he's ready, the faster they can go out to the pasture to herd the cows. That is their anxiety. That is their interest. What is Krishna wearing today? Where is Krishna taking us today? Which demon is Krishna going to kill today? Yesterday he killed Aghasura. I wonder who's going to show up today. That is their suspense. So, when we absorb ourselves in the Bhagavatam, we will also become affected by these wonderful pastimes. And we can take a fast, we can take a break from the news. And it actually improves the quality of our lives by at least 51%. Please try it out. There's a money-back guarantee. Try to go on a news fast and see how much the quality of your life will improve. And if you want to do a radical change, also quit all the WhatsApp groups, all the Google groups, and all the other important things which you get copied to. And just take a break from it and say, I'm busy with the Bhagavatam. I just want to know what's Krishna doing, and I really would like to learn how to control my mind and my senses. This will give you the edge. This will give you an advantage so that you can actually tell people straight from the heart, because your heart will be connected to Krishna's heart, to Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavatam. And you can tell people revolutionary concepts like this concept that Prahlad was telling his father. There is no friends and enemies. But we have to deliver them with purity and with humility. Otherwise people will not accept them. I was in San Francisco on Tuesday And there's one cop on Haight-Ashbury which is always harassing us, chasing us around, giving us a hard time. He just has got a penchant. He's got a desire to harass devotees. So he just walked around the corner and he just saw me taking a donation. And he walked straight up to me and said, "You're not allowed to do this." And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Show me your permit." And very proudly, I opened my wallet and I showed him the permit. And then I did something which I shouldn't have done. I said, "You see this signature here? Do you know this signature? This is your boss." Oh, I was really poking him. And he said, "Oh, you're a smart guy, huh? Okay, I'm giving you a citation for leaving your bag here unattended on the side of the road." So immediately I had to take the humble position and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. You know, I was just joking. And I apologize, I will keep the bag with me." "Yes, sir." "Yes, sir." "Yes, officer." And then immediately changed demeanor. Because as I was taking the humble position, immediately, because he's trying to be a kshatriya, he was, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're all right. You're a good boy. It's okay. Just don't do it again, all right? I'll let you go this time. But next time, I'm going to stick you with a citation." So we may say the right thing, but if the mood, if the attitude in which we say it is rubbing people the wrong way, then operation successful, but patient is dead. Oftentimes, we judge things by how we feel, how we did things, how we delivered our presentation. But are people coming back? Do they want more? Are they intrigued to again have our association? Or do they think, "No, I want to stay away from this person or from this place as far as possible"? That is the criteria. So, in the material world, we are very skeptical of people, of situations, and of objects. But we are very lenient, kind, and forgiving towards our own mind and our own senses. But Prahlad Maharaj, being Guru, being the original teacher, he's teaching us how to be strict with oneself and how to be generous and kind and lenient with others. He said, with others, you should see them all with equal mind. Just see everybody equal. Treat them equally. No friends, no enemies. Be nice to everybody. Share Krishna consciousness. Of course, some will accept it, some won't. And some are inimical. We have to avoid them. Prema Maitri Kripopeksha. This is the way how a Madhyam Bhakta, a preacher, interacts with different types of living entities. Prahlad Maharaj, in his prayers in the next chapter, he's praying, "Prayena deva munayaksvami muktikama maunam charanti vijanena parartanishta naitan vihaya kripanan vimumuksha eko nanyantarasya sharanam brahmatonu pashye." He's telling to Nrsingadev that there are many saintly persons indeed, and they are performing austerities, they have given up so many things, but they're still selfish because they're still interested in their own salvation. They do not care for the living entities. But I, for myself, I understand that without achieving your mercy, without achieving your shelter, there is no real solace or shelter or benefit in this world. So I'm making plans. How can I give your mercy to all these fools and rascals, to all these living entities? Please benedict them. Please help them. Please save them. Srila Prabhupada was here in Vrindavan writing Srimad Bhagavatam in Radha Damodar and planning and praying and scheming, how can I deliver these fools and rascals? How can I give them Krishna consciousness? And he left Vrindavan to bring Vrindavan to the world. And he went to the most important place. What is the most important place in this world? New York. He said New York, most important city. And then San Francisco. But now we have neglected these two cities for such a long time. For decades we have neglected. What happens when you neglect an arm or a leg? Maybe you broke a limb and it's in a cast. You get what's called atrophy. you know, your muscles go very weak. And even though your cast is removed, but you can hardly move your limb. Have you ever had that experience? It's a very painful experience. And it takes a lot of exercise to get back to strength. So right now, we have neglected New York and San Francisco, these two most important cities. And because of that, we have to exert a lot of energy. So, Srila Prabhupada put a lot of emphasis and a lot of energy into these places because he saw there was a potential. There was a potential for spreading Krishna consciousness. So devotee always sees the potential, he always fans the spark. And in this way, Krishna reciprocates with the devotee's desire. Today is also the disappearance day of Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. So I was asked to give short talk. It will be very short and brief, because today is also Dvadasi, and there is some breaking of fast to be done quite soon. So, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he is the son of Tapan Mishra, and he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was very young. And when he came back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had a worry, will Mahaprabhu recognize me? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately embraced him, recognized him, and held him very close to his heart. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he did not worship deities in grand style or inaugurate temple, but he would chant the Bhagavatam. And he knew every shloka in 4 different melodies. He was chanting shlokas like a cuckoo, very beautiful voice. And he also was an expert cook. So this shows that the devotees of the Lord are not stereotyped. There's all different types of devotees. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was the senior most Vaishnav in Vrindavan, and he wrote down the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya as he had heard them from Lord Chaitanya's intimate servants like Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Das Goswami, all their notebooks, all the katha that he got, he wrote them down. But what was he saying? He was praising Vrindavan Das Thakur, as the Vyasadev of Chaitanya Lila. So he was saying, no, I'm not great. I'm not the person who is giving you anything extraordinary, but Vrindavan Das Thakur, he is the Vyasadev of Lord Chaitanya's pastime. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, through his humility, he attracted the mercy of all the Vaishnavas. And he was blessed by them. He even asked for blessings from his readers. That's quite unique. Hardly ever you see that happen, that an author is asking for the blessings of his readers. And he's saying that I'm lame and old and invalid, and only by the stick of the mercy of the Vaishnavas am I walking. Raghunath Das Goswami, just something in regards to Vaishnav humility. Srila Prabhupada was also speaking very strong words. I met one person on Haight Street. He said, I cannot take you seriously, but I appreciate your founder. And I asked him why. He said, because he said that the people in this world, they're like worms in stool. And it's true. They're living in stool, they're eating stool, and they're passing stool. And he knows what's going on. But I can't deal with you. But I appreciate, So I accepted that. So sometimes these statements are taken out of context and they're thrown around, and people consider them very unsavory because they're very strong statements. But Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that an old man and a young boy, they can get away with saying or doing anything. But you're a young man, you cannot do so. So you cannot imitate. Raghunath Das Goswami, he was the son of Hiranya Majumdar, who was a very wealthy landowner. And his father and his uncle were probably the two wealthiest people at that time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared them to two worms in stool. And he didn't take offense. He just accepted it and appreciated it. And it's interesting how Raghunath Das Goswami was initially told, no, you stay home, you don't run away, you just be a nice boy, you just follow the ways of the world, and then later on, your desire will be fulfilled. So, when Raghunath Das Goswami finally ran away, after gotten the mercy of Lord Nityananda and all the Vaishnavas by feeding them in Panihati, he ran away. And he had traveled for many days, 11 days, out of which only 2 days he had eaten. Now when he came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu told him, okay, from now on, you only eat 1 cup of buttermilk every day, right? Was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction? No. No, he told his servant Govinda, you make sure he eats now. You give him my own prasad every day. And later on, gradually, as Raghunath Das was progressing in his renunciation, first he was inviting Mahaprabhu and giving lavish feasts. Then later on, he was taking prasad at the free booths, and he was begging, and then he was taking the rice, which was spoiled, and then he was taking that cup of buttermilk. So we cannot artificially imitate or jump to some imagined position, but we should act according to our level of realization. So Prahlad is showing us how to act for the benefit of all living entities. How can I know if I'm humble? How can I know if I'm attached? How do I know whether I'm following the whims of my mind and senses? It's very simple. It's very simple. Just go out on the street and try to show compassion to living entities and see what transpires, see what happens. How do people react? Krishna told the cowherd boys, when you go begging, you will be refused. You will be neglected. You will be meeting many obstacles. So, by taking up the preaching mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are accepting the Guru's order. Yare dekhe tarikaha Krishna upadesh, amar jnana guruhana tara edesh. Wherever you are, tell people about Krishna. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra kena no ye Krishna tattvaveta say guru hoy. Mahaprabhu was saying, you don't have to be a grihasta, because in his days only the grihastas were gurus. He said you can even be a sannyasi, you can also be a guru. Now we probably word it a little differently. So, give people this message of Krishna consciousness. It is the most revolutionary news, the most breaking news. And people are actually looking for this. This is big, big news. Just showing people a Bhagavad-Gita and telling them, you know what, you're not this body. You're the same person. You're just going through all these different stages. And eventually, you'll get a new body. People have this real moment of truth, and you're able to appreciate it when they actually appreciate Krishna consciousness. By the mercy of Krishna and by the mercy of the pure devotees, people's lives, their course of lives can become changed. And we see so many lives that have become changed. We are here today because of the mercy and the austerity of all the devotees who have sacrificed, who have prayed, and who have bestowed their benediction upon us. There is a new slang saying in Haight-Ashbury. People say blessings. They're giving blessings. So at least they get the right idea, you know. Formerly, people were saying other things, but now they say blessings, you know. I wish you blessings. So eventually, people get the right idea. It's just taking a while for them to understand what is a real blessing and what is actually fortune. So, Srila Prabhupada fanned the spark and he saw the potential in every living entity. How much more so should we also see that potential and appreciate all devotees and all living entities, seeing them equal and encouraging them in whatever way and capacity we can. Our initial moments in Krishna consciousness are very crucial when we come. Are we encouraged or are we discouraged? Do people tell us, no, you can't do this, don't touch this, you can't do this, you're not capable of doing this? Or do people tell us, yeah, come sit down here, come on, do this, help me with this. So, Krishna consciousness is the magic which is the solution to all the problems of this world. And we can experience this by seeing how people feel rejoiced, they feel inspired, they feel touched and blessed when they meet a humble devotee who is presenting the bold and straightforward message of Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. One comment. We've been granted one comment.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the breaking news class. I just read the other day what Prabhupada says about blessings. He says that only those whose senses are fully controlled and mind is peaceful, they give blessings.
Yes.
It's connected to the purpose.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why we should work in such a way to help people to control their mind and senses so that they can actually give blessings, because that is what they want to do. At least they're recognizing this is the proper thing to do. I may not be capable of doing it. Like sometimes people want to be charitable, but they just don't have it in them, or they may have nothing to give. So then we take their time or their sincerity or their interest as a gift, as a token, dakshina, like that. So when we see that potential, by the desire and the prayer of the Vaishnavas, that person will develop the adhikar, they develop the quality eventually to give blessings. Because it's not our blessings. Everything is coming from the same source. And that is Prahlad Maharaj's teachings. Thank you, Maharaj, for reminding us. And thank you for your kind patience. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.